In a week where emotional stakes were heightened and alliances reshaped in Port Charles, the once familiar rhythms of daily life gave way to unexpected turbulence. Beneath the surface of casual interactions and polite exchanges, a quiet war for control, purpose, and redemption played out in the lives of several key players. What began as seemingly unrelated events soon revealed a deeper network of influence and unrest, threads connecting the desperate, the hopeful, and the disillusioned. At the center of the week's turmoil stood Sasha Gilmore, whose recent progress had given many reason to believe she was finally past the darkest days of her grief and trauma. However, a sudden and deeply unsettling encounter shook her fragile stability. It occurred during what was supposed to be a routine check in a general hospital. A familiar scent from the corridor, a perfume she associated with the night of Liam's death, triggered a panic attack so severe it sent her spiraling back into the very memories she'd tried so hard to bury. Trembling, gasping for breath, Sasha stumbled into the nearest supply closet and locked herself in, heart pounding as shadows of the past clawed at her composure. She managed to call Maxie, who rushed to her side and coaxed her out, but the incident made it painfully clear that Sasha's journey was far from over. Her panic wasn't just a relapse, it was a warning, a signal that the trauma she carried was not merely dormant but dangerously alive. Meanwhile, at the Metro Court, Curtis Ashford sat across from Michael Corinthos in a private dining suite, their conversation cloaked in a tense civility that belied its implications. Curtis had a proposal, one that could either resurrect Michael's corporate stature or further complicate his already fragile world. Curtis offered Michael an opportunity to rejoin Aurora Media, not as a subordinate, but as a partner in redefining its future. "You've spent too long letting other people dictate your story," Curtis said plainly, his eyes unwavering. "It's time you reclaimed the narrative." The offer was generous, strategic, and came with the potential for Michael to regain not only a seat at the table but also control over the narrative surrounding his fall from grace. Yet Michael hesitated. Accepting the offer would mean distancing himself further from his father's influence, and perhaps even walking away from the Corinthos legacy for good. Still, the glint in Curtis's eye made it clear, this wasn't just business. This was a shift in power. And Michael, whether ready or not, stood at the edge of something irreversible. Elsewhere, Emma Scorpio Drake was quietly but effectively reclaiming her own power. For too long, she'd been seen as the intelligent but cautious daughter of legends. But recent weeks had tested her resolve, and Emma had emerged sharper and more assertive. When a minor security breach at the hospital threatened to expose patient records, including those of WSB-affiliated clients, Emma had been the one to trace the source, patch the system, and document the breach before upper management even noticed. Her actions not only earned her the admiration of Chief of Staff Portia Robinson but also gave her significant leverage. Emma now held evidence of negligence that could destabilize a rival's promotion. More importantly, she understood the value of silence. She wasn't interested in scandal, yet, but she was no longer the passive observer. Emma had the upper hand, and in Port Charles, that was a currency more valuable than any inheritance. Meanwhile, Jocelyn Jacks found herself navigating a very different realm of influence. As her relationship with Vaughn deepened, she remained acutely aware of the void between his hardened past and her guarded optimism. During a long walk along the piers, they talked about second chances and the weight of old mistakes. That's when Jocelyn floated an idea: what if Vaughn started a podcast? A space for him to unpack his past anonymously, share the lessons he'd learned, and perhaps reach others caught in similar traps. At first, Vaughn laughed, dismissing it as a cute idea, but something in Jocelyn's eyes made him pause. Her suggestion wasn't about redemption in the public eye, it was about healing. "You keep telling me you don't know who you are anymore," she said. "Maybe you don't have to know yet. Maybe it's enough to start asking the questions out loud." For Vaughn, the idea planted a seed. Maybe he didn't have to run from his past, maybe he could own it, reshape it, and finally stop being a ghost in his own life. And then, there was Lulu Spencer. After months of slow recovery from her coma, she had returned to Port Charles, assuming she was stepping back into familiar terrain. But everything had changed. Dante had moved on. Rocco had grown more distant. Even Laura, her rock, seemed war-weary in ways Lulu had never seen before. It was during a quiet afternoon at the park that the true shock came. As she sat watching Rocco from a distance, she saw him greet a woman warmly, a woman Lulu didn't recognize. They talked, laughed, and exchanged a tight embrace. Curious and mildly unnerved, Lulu asked her mother later who the woman was. Laura hesitated before revealing the truth. The woman was Isaiah's ex-wife, and she had been instrumental in caring for Rocco during Lulu's absence. Not only that, but Isaiah and Lulu's son had formed a close bond, one that was already deeper than Lulu had anticipated. The realization stunned her. She'd expected a clean re-entry into her old life, but what she found instead was a tangled web of new dynamics, ones she hadn't been around to shape or influence. And for the first time since waking up, Lulu wasn't just grieving lost time, she was grieving the life that had moved on without her. Each of these stories, though distinct, spoke to a singular truth reverberating through Port Charles. Control is an illusion, and the power to reshape one's story often comes at the cost of comfort, clarity, or even belonging. Sasha's unraveling reminded everyone that healing is not linear. Curtis's bold maneuver underscored the currency of strategic partnerships. Emma's rise revealed how quietly one can accumulate power. Jocelyn's suggestion showed that empathy can be more transformative than confrontation. And Lulu's rude awakening demonstrated how much can change when you're not looking. As Port Charles edged toward another turning point, its residents were once again reminded that it's not the loudest voices or most dominant players who always win, but those who adapt, recalibrate, and seize the moment when no one else sees it coming.